After a brutal, long-ass wait, we finally have the return of NBA playoff basketball in the bubble, and I've decided to give you guys my predictions for each round of the tournament until we crown a champion. Now, most people love the idea of just predicting the tournament all the way through until a champion is crowned and deciding who they think is going to win it all right off the bat. What I decided to do is I'm going to go round by round and put out a corresponding video for each one. So I'm taking the safe route to properly analyze and break down each matchup as we go along until the champion is crowned. So with that, let's get started. Starting off in the Eastern Conference with the top-seeded Bucks taking on the Orlando Magic. Now, this one I personally feel like is one of the easier ones to predict, as anybody else I think would agree, in that the Bucks are just a complete mismatch for the Magic on both sides of the ball. I mean, the Magic really don't have any answers defensively for anybody in that lineup, especially with Jonathan Isaac being out for the season. He was probably their one hope for being able to somewhat keep Giannis in check, but then you've got all the other weapons to worry about. I just feel like there's no real chance for the Magic here other than maybe a DJ Augustine Game 1 winner to set the tone. Yeah, I didn't forget. Really not much to explain here. I mean, honestly, there's probably a chance for Giannis to have a little bit of load management here in the first round. This is an easy win. I say Bucks in 4, maybe 5 at the most if DJ Augustine does another 2019 impression of his in Game 1. This will be an easy win for the Bucks either way. Moving on to the other lopsided matchup in the East is the defending champion Raptors taking on the Long Island Nets. Another series I don't expect to be particularly competitive. I mean, this should be a relatively easy ride for the Raptors to move on. The Nets basically limped into the bubble with the corpse of Jamal Crawford and a underwhelming G League roster, and that's pretty much what they're carrying into this matchup with the Raptors. They have no chance, once again, on either side of the ball. They really have no answers for the Raptors' versatile defensive ability. Sure, you guys did enough to survive the qualifying rounds and are technically in a playoff spot, which technically makes you a playoff team, but I see this being a quick and easy ass whooping. Raptors in 4. A little more exciting in the East with the 3 and 6 spots, with the Celtics taking on the 76ers. Now, keep in mind, with Philly losing Ben Simmons probably for the season, they're going to have to do even more lineup tweaking than they already did going into the bubble. The most disappointing part of this series is with Ben Simmons being out, we won't get to see an incredible matchup at the 4 spot. Ben Simmons was the most dynamic defender on the 76ers roster and really would have had a chance to show what he could do defensively against Tatum. Now, what I expect to see from Philly is something a lot similar to the 2009 Magic when they had Dwight Howard in their run. Both these teams have an incredibly talented yet notoriously juvenile big man who their team revolves around. Now, Coach Brett Brown has an opportunity to surround Joel Embiid with playmakers on the outside, along with some perimeter shooting in order to create space for the big man, feed him down low, and let him eat. My issue is I do not trust Embiid at all in big moments. He has yet to prove that he can show up on the big stage, and I don't feel like the 76ers have enough firepower on the outside to surround him with enough support against the Celtics. The Celtics have way more scoring ability, way more versatility, way more playmaking, and are much, much better coached. And I do feel like Philly will steal a couple of games in this series, but overall the Celtics are the better team on both sides of the ball. I've got the Celtics in 6. Looking at the 4 and 5 spots in the East, we've got the Miami Heat and Indiana Pacers. Now, this one's exciting as well because I look to see a lot of old school ball between these two teams. Both of them are gritty, tough, inside scoring teams with a lot of perimeter defense on both sides. Despite the Pacers losing Domantas Sabonis to injury, I do feel like they have enough offensive versatility to make up for the lack of dynamic postgame. Malcolm Brogdon is a battle-tested playoff performer at this point, and Victor Oladipo is as well. Now, it depends on which version of Victor Oladipo we get because he's looked a little shaky since he's been back in the bubble. The obvious X factor here for Indiana is bubble TJ Warren. I mean, the guy's been out of his mind. Now, can we trust him to continue that into the playoffs is the question. As for the Miami Heat, as much as I love grown-ass man Jimmy Butler, I wonder if he has enough support around him. I mean, Bam Adebayo has been one of the breakout players of the season, both in and out of the bubble, and this is a chance for 3-time champion Andre Iguodala to prove exactly why Miami brought him in the first place. While I wouldn't be shocked to see the Pacers win this series, I do feel like I give a slight edge to the Miami Heat. Both these teams have their fair share of top-end talent and are both excellently coached. I just feel like Miami is slightly better defensively, and that will be the edge in this playoff series. Also, I'm not quite convinced that Victor Oladipo is shaking off all the rust, and going up against a tough, gritty team like the Miami Heat may end up being their downfall. I've got the Heat in 7. Now moving on to the Western Conference, we've got an incredibly interesting matchup between the Lakers and the Portland Trailblazers. Of course, Portland won their play-in as Damian Lillard has been out of his damn mind. Meanwhile, LeBron and the Sunshine Gang are looking funny in the light. The Lakers have clearly been by far one of the more disappointing teams in the bubble, and it's raised concerns over how well they'll perform during this playoff run. I mean, sure, securing the #1 spot in the West is great, but it really doesn't matter here in the Orlando bubble because nobody has home court advantage anyway. Now, while this Blazers run has been fun to watch, and I do feel like they have an opportunity to create some matchup nightmares with some of these contender teams, I'm still not all the way ready to hop on the Blazers bandwagon just yet. Don't get me wrong, I do feel like the Blazers have the potential to put up a real good fight against these Lakers and maybe even cost them a championship without winning the round. I just don't trust the Blazers defense, and I feel like the Lakers still have that next gear that they can tap into to finish off the series. I'll say the Lakers win it in 6. Looking at the 2 and 7 in the West, we have the Clippers and the Mavericks. Now, I love Luka. I mean, who doesn't? The guy's incredible. The amount of substance this guy adds to the Mavericks offense is just unbelievable. And I mean, he's had a great year all year, but he's been especially good in the bubble. The issue here is the Mavericks just ran into the exact wrong matchup in the Clippers. The Clippers have an embarrassment of riches defensively and can throw any combination of Beverly, Kawhi, and Paul George on Luka at any given time in order to tire him out and to neutralize that offense. On top of that, the Mavericks have really not been a very good defensive team, and the Clippers also have an embarrassment of riches on the offensive end and a bunch of guys that can get you a bucket when necessary. I mean, it's unfortunate this was just the exact wrong matchup for the Mavericks in the first round. Porzingis has the opportunity to have some fun at the expense of the Clippers' bigs, but the lockdown perimeter defense that will be thrown at Luka will just be too much. I've got the Clippers in 5. Looking at the Nuggets and Jazz, this series has a lot of potential, a lot of watchable basketball, and I think a lot of old school basketball similar to the Heat and Pacers, with maybe an even sexier big man matchup between Jokic and Rudy Gobert. Now, the Nuggets take their way into this first round slugfest with an incredibly unique offense and a revamped defense. Whereas I feel like the Jazz sort of go into this like a heavyweight boxer, and that on the defensive side of the ball, they can take a lot of beatings, they can take a lot of punishment because they're so good defensively, but they tend to lean on Donovan Mitchell to provide the haymakers on offense. Now, I do feel like these two teams are incredibly evenly matched, and I do think it goes the distance either way. Now, with the Jazz, there's no question that they can create stops. The issue is, can they create enough on the offensive side of the ball outside of Donovan Mitchell on a consistent basis to survive a 7-game series? For the Nuggets, even though they don't necessarily have a top tier defense, I do feel like they have enough defensive versatility to match up against an underwhelming Utah offense. I give a very slight edge to Jokesman and the Nuggets, and I say they take it in 7. Now, last but certainly not least, we have probably the most exciting matchup in the first round between the Rockets and the 4th-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, obviously for this matchup, having home court advantage for either of these two teams would have been that much better, but this is an incredible matchup nonetheless. This is a great opportunity for Chris Paul to punish the Houston Rockets for essentially treating him as a salary dump in the trade for Russell Westbrook last offseason. This is also a chance for him to once again prove that he is still an elite point guard in this league and can carry a team on another deep playoff run. While I'm not especially crazy about the Rockets' micro-ball offense and their complete ignorance for interior defense and rebounding, watching some of the Rockets games during the bubble, I actually have seen James Harden play some somewhat competent defensive basketball.
I guess I should be thankful.
With that being said, it's a similar situation to Joel Embiid in that I just need you to show me. I need you to show me that you can do it in the playoffs. I mean, we've been through it with this guy over and over again, and we've been through it with that coach and that team over and over again. It's the same issues as soon as they get there, and they don't want to fix it. They want to learn the hard way, and I think it's going to be the same thing again. Despite what I think actually looked like a greatly improved defensive play from James Harden and the Rockets, I'm just not convinced it has a lot of nutritional value to it, and I don't think it's going to carry into the playoffs. Despite the Rockets' high volume scoring ability and their high ceiling on the offensive side of the ball, I do feel like the Thunder are better coached and have better versatility on the offensive end and are definitely a much better team defensively. I think they'll dominate the boards. The Rockets really don't have an answer for Steven Adams, and I think that Chris Paul, Steven Adams pick and roll is really going to punish the Rockets the entire series. I'm much more confident in the Thunder's role players than I am in the Rockets, and I think that'll be the key. I've got the Oklahoma City Thunder winning this bad boy in 6 games. And there it is, man. There's my first round predictions. To recap, I've got the Bucks in 5, the Raptors in 4, the Celtics in 6, the Heat in 7, the Lakers in 6, the Clippers in 5, the Nuggets in 7, and the Thunder in 6. If you agree or disagree, hit me up in the comments, let me know what you think. But regardless, I'm just glad we have NBA playoff basketball back. It was certainly worth the wait. And on that note, I will check in with y'all for the second round.